defining women as chest-feeding, frontal-birthing persons or period peoples with vaginas. Professing themselves to be wise, they became utter fools instead. Since we're now dropping traditional definitions in the name of the New World Order, gay now means two men of the opposite sex in a heterosexual relationship. Lesbian means two women of the opposite sex in a heterosexual relationship. Homosexuals are people that identify as cisgendered straight transsexuals. Non-binary means women that identify as male and female. People of color are now straight white homosexual men. Critical race theory is the systematic matriarchal oppression and colonization of white indigenous minority groups. Pro-choice means abortion should be illegal on demand. My choice, your body, as the slogan goes, where only women who identify as trans men have a say. Confused yet? Well, that's the point. What we're actually seeing is the psychological operation under the guise of sexual identity, including the LGBTTTIQQAAP movement into the New World Order. We're currently in the demoralization phase of Yuri Bezmenov's 4 stages of ideological subversion: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. One of the most deceptive aspects of the PSYOP was to turn the depopulation agenda into a social movement that lumps together critical race theory, the suffering of minorities, gender confusion into an incoherent but workable LGBTTTIQQAAP movement, where the very people they claim to liberate, the real intention is to destroy them physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. People that of predominantly one class, the middle class. This is a textbook problem, reaction, solution scenario, right? So for world government, it goes something like this, right? So problem: competition between sovereign nation states creates needless wars. Reaction: let's all get along and work together and get rid of competition. Well, to do that, what do you got to do? Solution: you put a world government in its place where there's no more war by dissolving sovereign nations so that there's no more competition. And so it's the Rodney King, can't we all just get along? And if we can get along, then we can unite. If we can unite, the United Nations is the concept of the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament, right? So, and today we see the EU Parliament building that's reconstructed as a half-built Tower of Babel, right? So maybe we'll put that image in the overlay in the post-production. So this idea of this reaction solves the problem, but the solution solves the reaction. These guys are smart. They know what they're doing.
This is Dabu7. This is a video that I had promised to some of my subs out there. Me and Casey had been trying to put this together several times, talking about all of this information. We had a lot of problems and weird glitches, but I'm going to give it a go and cover this Mount Hermon. Again, I talked about it in the past many times. You can see its proximity here to Damascus on the map. And its exact location is key. It was, I believe, 1666 of all years, Louis XIV had declared the meridian points. And from those points, 33 degrees east of that meridian and 33 degrees north of the equator sits this exact spot, Mount Hermon. And what is important about this, even biblically, is this is where the fallen angels landed. This is an area that the UN swooped into, and they established a base up here. This is the highest peak in all of Syria. All of Syria, all the ancient land and ancient Damascus and everything there. This is the highest peak, 9,232 feet above sea level. Also, the slopes of it extend down into the Golan Heights, where Israel is occupying a lot of the territory. And in that region, there is the highest peak in all of Israel. It's 7,336 feet in elevation. Highest peak in all of Israeli-controlled territory. Now, back in the 70s, Israel and Egypt and them got in a fight, and Israel and Syria got in a fight, and the UN swooped in to this peak and established this base that they call Hermon Hotel. A UN peak, the highest UN basin of all the globe. They can see in all directions for miles. And biblically, this being the place where Og had control, where the fallen ones landed, and also the territory of the ancient tribe of Dan. All of this connects right to this very area. And it's very interesting because a lot of biblical characters came to this area, talked about this area, referenced this area. And I think the most important thing to me that stands out about all this is they state time and time again that this is where the Nephilim landed. When you hear the stories of the giants on the earth in those days, this is where it all emanates from. This highest peak that they won't let no one up or around. You can only imagine what kind of monuments are sitting there, what's buried, and what they don't show people. Turkey is littered with it. They found the throne of Zeus there. The Germans took that brick by brick apart back to Germany with them. Shows how much importance that had to them. Then you have all the ancient stuff that's littered all over the place. The oldest temple in the world, Göbekli Tepe, sits on the border of Syria and Turkey. All the ancient mystery there. Of course, these are areas that are in constant war. And I can't help but think this is the exact quest that Hitler was on, and that I believe the other militaries are still on around the globe. He went to the Tibetan monks. They told him, go here, go there. Talked about the ancient stuff of northern Africa that was buried, Antarctica. And these places he went to and visited, and they established their base in Antarctica. I mean, I've talked about that in separate videos, everything that's gone down at the poles. The battles, Operation Paperclip, how Hitler didn't die in the bunker like they try to teach you in school in a book, how it didn't go down that way, and then how all the German scientists, top level, all the top technology that they had with all their aircraft and all that came to the United States.
You spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. you are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place, and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. Obviously they will join the links of dissenters, dissidents.
Yes.
Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world, that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins, never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in a state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to, unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins. This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government. If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development, nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to prison inmate. All this freedom will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of the United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions, and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism. Because there is no other problem more burning and urgent than to stop the Soviet military-industrial complex from destroying whatever is left of the free world. And it is very easy to do. No credits, no technology, no money, no political or diplomatic recognition, and of course no such idiocy as grain deals to USSR. The Soviet people, 270 millions of Soviets, will be eternally thankful to you if you stop aiding a bunch of murderers who sit now in Kremlin and whom President Reagan respectfully calls government. They do not govern anything, least of all such complexity as the Soviet economy. So basic, two very simple, maybe too simplistic answers or solutions, but nevertheless they are the only solutions. Educate yourself. Understand what's going on around you. You are not living at the time of peace. You are in a state of war. And you have precious little time to save yourself. You don't have much time, especially if you are talking about young generation. There's not much time left for convulsions to the beautiful disco music. Very soon it will go, just overnight. If we are talking about capitalists or wealthy businessmen, I think they are selling the rope on which they will hang very soon. If they don't stop, if they cannot curb their unsettled desire for profit, and if they keep on trading with the monster of the Soviet communism, they are going to hang very soon. And they will pray to be killed But unfortunately, they will be sent to Alaska probably to manage industry of slaves.
The Hegelian dialectic was named after a German philosopher named Friedrich Wilhelm Hegel. I won't go too much into his philosophies, but he spoke a lot about the relationship people have, sort of master and slave relationships, and the nature of being and so on. But I'm not going to go into that today. What I'm going to be talking about is the Hegelian dialectic itself. So, when it comes to this lovely bit of philosophy, it's quite revealing. What it basically stands for is problem, reaction, solution. And this is something that the lords and ruling class of the world have always used to control the masses. It's something that's commonly used, I'm sure, even today. It's basically the language that those who want to control you are going to use to control you while making you think that you are in control. So the first step is the problem. Those that want to control you are going to either create a problem, or they're going to make a problem that's already in your society a lot worse than what it is. And they do that by step 2, the reaction. The reaction is where they show you the problem. So think of it as the media reporting on a big problem that's going to cause a lot of issues for you and your country and your people. That is the reaction. What they're doing is they're waiting to see the public's reaction. What they want is the public to react and the public to ask, whatever will we do to solve this problem? And then comes step 3, solution. That is when the ruling class, the people in power, decide to give you a solution. And this part they might have already thought of before even the problem began. See, if it was the case where they created the problem, then they already know the solution to the problem. And the solution often benefits them more than it benefits you. So there you have it. Problem, reaction, solution. One of the most well-known examples of this is probably what happened in Nazi Germany. You see, the problem was that they needed everyone to unite. They needed Germany to unite, that there was a common evil enemy, and so they found a problem. You see, the German people were already somewhat resentful of the Jewish people because it seemed that they had wealth when Germany was struggling. So all they had to do is demonize the Jews, and after that, they had their problem. The Jews were their problem. So what they did then is create a reaction. So they started to spread propaganda. Once propaganda started to spread, it created a reaction in the general population. They had issues, and it was a growing anger in these people. And so they gave them a final solution. I don't think I need to go into what their final solution was, but you can kind of see what happened here. They created a problem. People united against that so-called problem, and they gave them the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem for them was more control. They were able to do that and gain more control over everyone's lives because why not? That's what they wanted. They wanted more control. So here's a very interesting quote that might help you see what I'm trying to say here with this philosophy, if you haven't already guessed what I'm trying to get at. This quote was from former commander-in-chief of the National Socialist Luftwaffe, Hermann Göring. Why? Of course the people don't want war. Why should some poor slob on a farm want to risk his life in a war when the best he can get out of it is to come back to his farm in one piece? Naturally, the common people don't want war. Neither in Russia, nor in England, nor, for that matter, in Germany. That is understood. But after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along. Whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship, voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, and denounce the peacemakers for their lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in any country. So of course there he's talking about war. So it's a little different. But think about this whole idea, problem, reaction, solution. Where do you think it could be used in, I don't know, events other than war? Perhaps terrorism, perhaps disease. Who knows where it can be used? All you need to do is create a problem or make a problem worse than it is. Then tell everybody about it, get the public to react, to become fearful, and then give them the solution. Now the question is, my question to all of this: how often do you think our leaders, our people in power, have used this Hegelian dialectic? How often indeed? Of course, I could name a couple that seem somewhat suspicious, but I'm not going to, because that would be conspiracies, and I don't think that's quite allowed on this platform. But I think you can think for yourself. There's been a number of events throughout our lives that were somewhat world-shaking, that was somewhat big, shall we say. After each one of these events, ask yourself, who stood to benefit? Who got more power? And who lost more power? Every time something big happens in the world, it seems like it's always one way. More security, more control, more power to those in power, and less control, less power to us, the common, normal people. It's an interesting thing to think about, and it's an interesting thing when you look at history. Now, of course, I'm not saying that anything was lies or anything was truth. I can't prove any of that. All I'm saying is maybe next time there's a big emergency or something big happens that the media wants you to see, question it. Question all of it. Don't think for 1 second that those in power only have your best interest in mind. I'm sure there are some that do, but there are some that only want power, and they will do whatever they can to get that power, no matter what it takes, no matter how much fear they need to instill in your life, they will do it. And then, once the chains are too tight and you can barely breathe, you'll have nowhere to go, and you'll have nothing to do but their bidding. I feel we are slowly slipping down that road. I know it sounds extreme. I know it seems like, well, no way. There's no way we could go so far that we'd have some dictatorship or some insane controls and slavery and so on. But, you know, those things didn't just start. None of that just started. It wasn't just one day everything was normal and then the next we had fascism, communism, all these crazy ideologies that completely want to control your life. No, it was a slow process. It was one little step after another. And I truly do wonder how many steps we are away from that. Anyway, that's the Hegelian dialectic. A bit of creepiness for your night or day, whenever you're watching this. Either way, it's worth thinking about. That's all from me. My name is Chad J. Gibson. Please do like and subscribe and comment down below what you think of this video, and if you have any ideas of how those glorious people in power have used the Hegelian dialectic. That's all for me. Oh wait, that's not my outro. I always get the outro wrong these days. So that's all for me, and I will most certainly